Hello and welcome to my channel, Stamp with Julie Baum. My name is Julie and I'm here today with a card project to show you. This is a card that we made at Stamp Club in May of 2026. Now there were two other projects. One is an adorable little box and the other is a split panel card. So make sure that you look for those other two separate videos that show the Stamp Club projects from May of 2026. Let's talk about the pieces that we're going to use for this and get started building our card. All right, I'm beginning with cardstock that is Hydrangea Hue, this beautiful purplish blue color. It is 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. I've scored it at 4.25 inches. And as you've seen me do, I'll take my bone folder and reinforce that crease. Now I've got a beautiful crisp crease on the side of my card. Then I have a piece of white cardstock. This piece is 4 inches by 5.25 inches. This is going to be the inside panel. I have a piece of Crumb Cake cardstock, 4 inches by 5.25 inches. This piece is going to be a panel on the front. And then look at our gorgeous designer series paper. This piece is 3.75 inches by 5 inches. And you might notice, obviously the Hydrangea Hue color is in there, also Crumb Cake, and we've also got some gray granite in here. And we are going to use both Crumb Cake and gray granite as our ink colors. I'll come back to why I made mention of that in just a little bit. All right, then you've got a scrap of Hydrangea Hue cardstock. Your scrap needs to be at least 3.25 inches square. The reason for that is we're going to use this large scallop die, and this scallop die is shown here on the package. Scalloped Blooms dies. This coordinates with a number of things, but it does look beautiful with the Boutique Blossoms bundle, both the stamps and the dies. But because of the nature of these dies, this would also be a great standalone set of dies. You're going to reach for these shapes over and over again, much like we've done with stylish shapes and nested essentials and everyday arches. They are just shapes that you're going to want to use many, many times. All right, so that die is going to go on the Hydrangea Hue scrap, and that's going to get run through the machine so that we end up with this beautiful piece. And then a smaller scallop is going to go, let's see, where's my white scrap? Just so I can show you this piece. This piece measures 2.5 inches square. So at least start with a scrap that is that size because you need to be able to fit that die on there, run it through your machine, and that will give us this die cut. You'll notice that some of the scallops have the little edging around them and some don't. So it's a nice way to coordinate the two. Sometimes you get the little stitching, sometimes it doesn't have it, but they all work well together. All right. Now, in the packet for this particular project is also a piece of Mossy Meadow cardstock. Now, out of this, we're going to cut two sets of leaves. This is the die, okay? And that is from Boutique Blossoms. Here you can see on the package of dies, it is this die right here. Now, you'll also note that there are a couple other leaf dies. Well, there are some stamps that you can stamp, two-step stamping, to create a little cluster and then die cut those. But in this case, we're not even stamping. We're just going to use the colored cardstock and we're just going to die cut it. And as you can see, it's got this beautiful detail already as part of it. So you need a scrap of Mossy Meadow that is at least 3 inches long and about 1.125 or 1.25 inches. All you need is enough to do two of these little leaf die cuts. All right, this piece might be a little bit generous, but that's better than not having enough. All right, so we have those. And then we've got two little flowers, and let's just go ahead and stamp those flowers and talk about those right now. So you'll have your scrap of white cardstock, and this genuinely can just be a scrap. We're only going to need two flowers to fit on there. All right. So to begin with, we're going to reach for our gray granite ink pad and our two flower stamps to build the flower. What I'm going to do to begin with is identify the petals on this flower, because we're going to want to stamp the outline and then drop the insides into the petals. And then furthermore, we're also going to need to die cut it. So we need to identify how this lines up. And I hope that this little tip will help you. If you look at the outline here of the stamp, what I'm going to do is stamp it. It will be easier to show once there's ink on it. So I'm going to take my gray granite, stamp my outline. Now let's talk about it. Most of the petals look somewhat the same shape. So you've got this loop and loop and loop and loop, loop. This one's a little odd, but it's still a loop. And then you have this one that's a very odd shape. That is key. That is actually going to help us. So we're going to identify that unique petal. Then we're going to take our inside of the flower, stamp it with our gray granite ink. I'm going to stamp it off on a piece of scratch paper. And I'm going to identify that same little odd or unique petal. And that is going to help me line this up and stamp my flower perfectly. Let's do that one more time. Identify that little unique petal. It's over here. And I'm going to find it on this stamp. It's right there. Stamp this off. And then line it up, finding that unique petal, and drop your petals in. All right, now we've got to do that one more time. When you take your die, let's see if I can make this show up better. All right, when you take your die, you're going to notice that there's one petal that is clearly smaller than the other. That is your unique one. So this one, this one, this one, those are all kind of uniform, but this little guy is definitely smaller. That's the one that you want to use to line up on that unique petal, and your die cut flowers will be perfect. So I've done two of those ahead of time, and they are right here. We're going to add those to our card. I hope those little tips help you. I would hate for you to feel frustrated when you're doing your flowers. Honestly, they're pretty forgiving enough that you can just stamp them and it's going to look pretty anyway. But if you are kind of a perfectionist and you want to line it up just so, those tips should help. All right, let's put our card together. We have one more bit of stamping to do. That is on this scallop. And now we're going to reach for the Crumb Cake ink. And the reason that I made mention of that is at Stamp Club, I noticed as the day went on and the evening that some of my members did the whole card just in Crumb Cake, the flowers and the words, or the whole card just in the gray granite. They didn't really realize that there were two colors. And here's why. Look at how similar they are. This is the Crumb Cake and this is the gray granite. So they are very similar, but if you're trying to pick up the distinct colors out of the paper, you may want to use the two colors like I did. That said, if you only have Crumb Cake or you only have gray granite, just go for it. This will all look fine done in one color. Okay, I am going to take my little white stamped scallop. You'll also note that I stamped it a little bit higher than center. When we put the card together, you'll see why I did that. All right, this is going to go onto the blue, the Hydrangea Hue scallop. And I'm sort of lining up the shape of the scallop, but I'm really not going to be overly worried about it, but it lines up pretty well. Okay, we've got that. I'm going to flip that over and add a couple of dimensionals to the back of it. Get that ready to go. We have our front panel that's going to go right there. We can go ahead and add that. I really like how the blue and the brown, the crumb cake, go together. And I tell you, with all the other little colors in here and that little metallic splash, just looks beautiful. Okay, and we can add now our designer series paper right onto that layer. So, so pretty. All right, there we have that. Earlier today, I videoed this card and I ended up with some problems with my audio. And it was kind of good because when I did that one, I actually skipped a step. And wouldn't you know it, I just did it again. Let me show you another alternative. This is great. We're going to set this aside, but I do want to show you a different step because I just missed it. So we're going to rewind our thinking. We are going to get a card base and a crumb cake and a piece of designer series paper. And let me show you the correct way to build this card. This will all make sense in just a minute. Oh my goodness, I can't believe that I did it twice. All right, this time, do not glue your crumb cake to the card base yet. We are going to glue this piece to the crumb cake. Lovely. And then pause. Before we attach this to here, I want to wrap our linen thread around this layer. So we need to do that now. Because this one's already glued down, I will find another unique way to add my thread. But this is the card tip that I wanted to show you. So reaching for my linen thread, you're going to need about 30 inches of the thread to do this little ribbon treatment, all right? And you're going to want to be able to tack this down. So I'm going to grab 2 little pieces of tear and tape so that I'm ready. All right, I've got my 2 pieces of tape. I'm going to take the end of my linen thread and just tack it down right here to the crumb cake cardstock. It's nice and sticky, isn't it? Okay, like so. Then I'm going to take the linen thread and wrap it down the front of the card once, around the back, down the front twice, around the back, and 3 times. You want it coming across the front of the card 3 times. Then you can tack it down. I just kind of slid everything. There we go. Tack it down. And scissors. Cut the linen thread length off of the spool. Okay, and now we have our thread treatment, which is exactly what I was going for and missed it on the first round. All right, so back to where we left off. We are going to now attach this whole panel, which is ready, to the card front. And I'm not going to waste the fact that I've got that tape. I'm going to use those pieces to help this all stick down as well. So let's release that. So see, my friends, I could have edited the video and taken my mistake out, but I'm just like you. We make mistakes sometimes, whatever. Sometimes you have to just go with it. All right. Look at how beautiful. It was worth waiting for. I love that linen thread. When I do wrap it, I don't worry about if it's straight. I just kind of want it wrapped. In fact, it's even better if it's kind of crisscrossy. All right. Now we're caught back up with ourselves. Let's go ahead and release the backings of those dimensionals. And we'll put this down into place like so. Now for our decorating. So I've got those two sets of leaves. One of them I'm going to tuck up here right behind that white scallop, kind of in the area of the twine so that it all ties it together. You don't want everything all separate. You want it to be one cohesive look. So let's tuck that in. Pull it out a little because we're going to put our flower there also. All right, so I glued these two leaves down. I left that one just floating. It's up to you if you want to glue it down. And then I recommend that you take this other one and don't go directly across. Bring it down here a little bit, all right? So that your eye isn't stuck on that diagonal. Let's pull that one down a little. And now you can also see, I was talking about that extra little white space there. So I stamped my words a little higher than center, and that is going to give us just enough space to put that flower, and it looks really nice and kind of fills up the space. Let's flip these over, grab a couple of mini dimensionals. And we will get these into place. We're just about done. We're going to decorate the inside white panel. And we will also add some embellishments here to the front of the card. I'm going to show you two options. These are the two options that I provided for the Stamp Club members when they came to work on their creations this week. There we have it. All right, so let's do our inside, and then we will talk about those embellishment options. For the inside, I have our final piece sitting here, and that is a very small strip of the designer series paper. Either side of this paper will work, and I've made this card a number of times, and you can just switch it. Whichever one that you think you want to use is going to look really nice. So on this one, I'll go ahead and use this side up with a little bit of metallic, and I'll put my adhesive on this side. A little goes a long way. Try not to over glue. All right, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a white space on the left side of the card stock and line this up as straight as I can. Like so. This can now go on the inside. All right, the two embellishment packages that I set out as options for this card are the Pearls of Beauty, which are absolutely stunning, and this brown color or the white would look beautiful. Okay, you can see those. And then as an option, I also set out these metallic gems, which I would have to look and see if these are currently available. I think they are, but I'm not 100% sure. And they're kind of in three different colors of metal. And I think that these, with the metallic accent in the paper, are going to look really good. So on this card, I'm going to use these, but I will show you a finished card with the Pearls of Beauty so you can see both. All right, so I'm going to use kind of this bronzy color, and we'll do 1, 2, and let's use a large one at the bottom, 3. And there you have it. Don't you think that those just really pop? I will make a note below this video as to the availability of those metallic gems. I will look them up and see if they're available for you to order. All right, there we have that one. And then let me show you this one that was finished with the Pearls of Beauty in white. And I would not be able to pick a favorite. I think they're both equally good choices. And there you have it. This has been an absolute pleasure of mine to be able to share this card design with you. This was a Stamp Club project in May of 2026. I hope that you enjoyed watching it and maybe learned a thing or two. I would love to hear your comments, so be sure and do leave me a comment. And as always, I will leave some information for you under this video in the drop down box. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.